Hello everybody, my name is Stratnos, and in today's video we have a new build of the War Within Alpha, once again, dropping on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday. And so first off, we have the number of talent loadouts that can be saved on a per character basis has been increased to 40 from 10. 10 was actually a pretty restrictive amount, because if you played multiple specs, right? If you played 3 specs, and you saved 4 builds per spec, which is not an unreasonable amount to save, right? Then you were over the cap. Now it's going to be pretty reasonable to stay within a cap of 40. You know, even if you wanted a different build for each boss and an M+ build for each of your specs in a given tier, you'd be under the cap. That being said, I still think it's better to, like, I've been using a talent loadout manager add-on instead, and it's been nicer than using the default talent loadouts to swap between, so I'm probably going to stick with that, even though the main thing that caused me to swap initially was running into this cap of 10. We're removing increased melee range talents across the game, such as Astral Influence, Acrobatic Strikes. Default melee range has increased since these talents were originally created. I don't know if this is true. I thought we were still at 5 yards, and it's always been 5 yards. This is one of those lines that I might just have missed when they did that, I guess, if they did that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if this is true. I think this might be what they call gaslighting, what those kids are calling gaslighting these days. I'm not 100% sure, though. So they will now allow specs to attack from well outside where it appears they should be able to. They make the melee experience inconsistent across classes in a way we're not happy with, so we're removing them. Yeah, this is a note that's been in, like, within certain class patch notes over the past few years as they've done it, or not over the past few years, but over the past few builds as they've taken out specific talents like Acrobatic Strikes. My belief is that 5 yards is definitely too small for, and rather than taking everybody down to 5 yards, they should just bring everybody up to, say, 8. That, I think, would make things a lot better, because there's often so much swirly nonsense in melee, particularly if you're fighting a small hit boss box, that I think the game is going to feel much worse for everybody going down to 5, say. So I think they should reconsider this. And if they do want to standardize, which I applaud, bring it up rather than down. Rogue, we've got new hero talents available for testing. Deathstalker, this is the final untested hero talent tree, now available for testing, and I'll have a video out taking a look at it in the next probably 24 hours or so. Death Knight, there's a new talent, Unyielding Will. AMS's cooldown is increased by 20 seconds, but it now also removes all harmful magic effects when activated. Now a capstone talent after Rune Mastery and Subduing Grasp. So how valuable is it to clear debuffs? Well, in a PvE situation, it's not nothing, but much of the time when you would really value this, you can instead pre-plan and just have your AMS up and not be applied the magic effect in the first place. Anything that, you know, there are some abilities that are hard-coded to go through AMS, and those would presumably go through the removal effect of AMS as well. So pretty much anything that you could remove with this AMS, you probably could immune as well. And in those situations where the removal would be especially valuable, generally I think the cooldown reduction would be pretty, like the cooldown increase rather, would be pretty costly. So my suspicion is that this isn't going to be a very good talent in PvE situations, because usually in the spots where AMS is good, you can play it proactively, and you also will be very hurt by an extra 20 seconds of cooldown. Class trees had some further adjustments in locations. Osmosis healing while AMS is active has been increased and is now a 1-point talent. That's good. This talent was extremely weak and very painful to put 2 points into before. It will likely still be quite weak, but going to 1 point from 2 is a huge buff, of course. Runic Protection has been increased to 6%, was 3, and is now a 1-point talent, was 2. Blood Draw's cooldown has been reduced to 2 from 3 minutes. It's no longer a capstone, and is now available in Death's Echo old location. IBF is now the first talent on the left of the tree, replacing Mind Freeze. Runic Attenuation is directly after IBF. Death's Echo is now a capstone ability after Will of the Necropolis and Subduing Grasp. Okay, Death's Echo, that's the extra charge of a lot of your abilities. A very, very nice quality of life thing that you're going to want to try and pick up. I mean, it's just actually useful in a lot of cases, and even in the cases where you don't have a pre-planned use for it, it's very nice quality of life to be able to kind of rely on pressing Death's Advance and having a charge ready. Subduing Grasp now reduces damage by 6 seconds, or 6% for 6 seconds when you pull an enemy, was 8% at rank 2, and is now a 1-point talent. So Subduing Grasp, Runic Protection, and Osmosis were these really obnoxious 2-point talents that led down to capstones. It looks like what they're doing is they're turning all of them into 1-point talents, which is a huge buff. Particularly, Runic Protection is the only one of them that actually was a good. The others were kind of points that didn't do anything. But for all of them, making them 1 point instead of 2 means you're getting talent points, and you're getting talent points that you can spend on capstones, and it looks like they're just throwing more capstones at the bottom of the tree as well, which, cool. I like that idea. I like the idea of Unyielding Will as a situational one as well, although it seems quite weak. Death's Echo is a capstone. That's almost certainly going to be one that you're going to try and pick up. Vestigial Shell and Null Magic are also no longer choice nodes, and they're now both capstones, so you can take both of them. Those were the ones that, I think one of them was just a magic damage reduction, and then the other one was making your anti-magic shell apply to your group members as well, which, ooh, if that combos with Unyielding Will and lets you clear your party's debuffs when you AMS as well, that could be a cool combo. Unholy, Sudden Doom now gives you 10 cost reduction on Death Coil or Epidemic, so there's a nerf from it used to being free. With the update to Sudden Doom's proc rate, it further flooded Unholy with runic power, and you weren't able to spend RP down fast enough in a lot of scenarios to prevent overcapping. This next iteration, we're going to try a reduced cost to help combat the problem of runic power overcapping. Initially, we tested this as a full removal of the cost reduction, but it left quite a bit of downtime in the rotation and felt particularly bad outside of cooldowns. A 10 runic power cost reduction felt reasonably well, both inside and outside of cooldowns. Okay. Probably not a panic situation as well, because if this is something that you don't like, it looks like they're still iterating, so let them know how you feel about that rotation if you're an Unholy DK. And it also causes your next Coil or Epidemic to burst of Festering Wounds, because we're looking to increase the frequency you apply with Festering Strike, so we're exploring having an RP spender burst a wound instead of only Rune Spenders or Apocalypse. Internally, we found it creates a natural cadence in which you want to press Festering Strike instead of relying only on passive wound applicators. The other perk of Death Coil bursting a Festering Wound when consuming Sudden Doom is it helps ease the friction of what to press during your CDs. That's very true. That is definitely a friction that you do experience on that spec. Updated the spec tree with a few additional talent relocations. We're not going to read those. Frost fixed an issue with Absolute Zero being available prior to the third gate being unlocked. Okay, again, in these videos, we don't look at the talent trees and see where the things have moved. That's very valuable content. If you want to see some of that, I think Max usually has like a stream that goes live right after each of these builds goes up, and he looks through the talent trees and talks about those things. And then a lot of creators for individual specs do that. I try and keep a bit more of a broad overview here of what's changing, and that includes not looking at all these talent trees directly. So if that's something that you want some analysis of, you'll need to go elsewhere for that. And sorry about that. Druid. Balance. Orbital Strike has temporarily had his line targeting reticle disabled. Feral. Cat form no longer gives you extra range. That's, again, the big thing they were talking about at the top. Omen of Clarity. Clear Casting Aura has been added to the personal resource bar, and it no longer highlights the spell icons for Shred, Swipe, and Thrash. Evoker. Deep Breath, Landslide, and Breath of Aeons have temporarily had their line targeting reticle disabled while we work on an issue causing a crash. Yeah, that was happening for me with Landslide on PTR. I guess I've been playing Scale Commander as well, so my Deep Breath hasn't had that reticle. It's just been, controllable forward movement thing. But yeah, whenever you press Landslide, it just crashed the desktop, so that makes sense that's what was causing that. Life Cinders now upgrades Renewing Blaze to allow one friendly target. If no target is selected, it will find a nearby injured ally. Ooh, that is a huge power increase so Life Cinders, I believe, I think that's a Flame Shaper hero talent. So I'm not sure. I think it is, not just a base Evoker thing. That is extremely powerful, letting you target somebody with it rather than needing to make sure you're the closest to them. That'll make it a lot more feasible to use it in both a raid and an M+ situation as an external on somebody. Of course, you could already do this. So imagine an M+, you put Renewing Blaze on your tank because they're setting up a big pull. Huge survivability increase. In Raid, though, there are applications for this as well. Say you're on Forgotten Experiments and the first debuff target is getting over like 11 stacks. You just hit them with a Renewing Blaze, and now they're chilling until they're at like 17 stacks, and then you can dispel the first two simultaneously. very powerful. Lots of spaces like that in Raid where like one person has a nasty debuff, right? Your Evoker, your Dev Evoker can now put a Renewing Blaze on the 4th Dispel target on Tindral, for instance, in some of those nasty overlaps at the end of the fight. Or they can apply it to somebody with a lot of stacks of the Seed debuff on Fireack. Extremely powerful effect, making it targetable, massively amps up the value of it. Chrono Warden, Prez Evokers. So Prez Chrono Warden Evokers are now only getting 6 seconds of CDR on Instability Matrix, down from 10. Flame Shaper. Fan the Flames has been adjusted. Instead of extending and kindle, it adds 100% more damage or healing onto the periodic effect. In addition, the tooltip now clarifies that it affects all active enkindles. Traveling Flame now extends Dream Breath or Fire Breath by 8 seconds and causes it to spread to a nearby target. Causes it to spread or refresh, so now it's going to do extend and spread rather than an or situation. And Consume Flame now consumes 4 seconds, down from 8, and the amount of healing or damage is now 300% of that and now scales with haste. Nice. Dev Evoker. The goal of these changes is to primarily increase the viability of the left side of the Devastation tree. We hope this can allow Devastation to be more flexible in their talent choices and have options to build around Firestorm if they wish. Yeah, Dev has been ignoring the bottom left part of their tree basically forever. And there's kind of just been a very small amount of talent points that have ever changed in that tree. So they're buffing the radius of Firestorm. Its tick rate now increases with haste. There's a new talent which causes enemies to take 20% increased damage from your red spells while affected by Fire Breath. So that's, of course, going to scale with Firestorm as well. Feed the Flames has been redesigned. Now causes enemies to take 20% more damage from Pyre and Disintegrate if they're inside your Firestorm, so making Firestorm a little bit more feasible in small target situations with something like that. Snapfire has been slightly redesigned. It now grants a free cast of Firestorm that does not trigger the cooldown, and it now triggers from Pyre instead of Living Flame. So it'll be full value even if Firestorm wasn't on CD. Potentially cool. The problem with Firestorms hasn't really been addressed by this, which is that Firestorm is an incredibly clunky effect. It's like a Rain of Fire from Destro, but you need the targets to stand still even longer. Now, making the radius go up helps with that a little bit, but it's still one of those things where many real-world situations make it perform quite poorly, so it needs to be tuned so that it's actually doing much better damage than the alternatives would be, and it's kind of been tuned to be doing slightly worse damage and much more clunkiness. So we'll see if these make it maybe so that it is more damage, and then you've got a more damage but more clunky trade-off that maybe isn't necessarily fun, but is at least something people will pick sometimes. Imminent Destruction now also increases Disintegrate and Pyre damage by 10%, and lasts 12 seconds, was 10. It swap places with Feed the Flames. Honed Aggression now increases Azure Strike and Living Flame damage by 10% per point, and Everburning Flame and Raging Inferno are gone. All right, let's move on to Mage. Arcane Mage. Energized Familiar now fires 4 bolts during Surge instead of Time Warp or other similar effects. Okay. You get more Arcane Surges than Time Warp, so that's pretty cool. Wizened Wit has gotten nerfed to only decrease blast time by 5% from 10. Mana Adept and Slipstream have swapped places. Clearcasting's chance to trigger, no longer tied to mana spent, now has a 10% chance of triggering when casting any damaging spell. Okay, so you're going to proc more of them relatively in like AoE, more of them when you're on like low conserve phases or whatever, when you're barraging, but less of them when you're spamming Arcane Blasts, and less of them in Surge. You can no longer trigger Clearcasting by casting damaging spells while out of combat. Evocation now grants 1 stack of Clearcasting. Siphon Storm's duration has been reduced to 20 seconds, was 30. That's the powerful damage buff you get after evocating. Arcane Battery has been removed. We appreciate everyone's feedback on the frustration centered around Arcane Battery, and have opted to replace it with Arcane Debilitation. Debilitation is meant to meaningfully integrate with existing missiles effects across the tree in an exciting way with minimal headspace requirements. We'll be sensitive to any degenerate optimizations that need to be done to maximize this talent's effectiveness. And that new talent says damaging a target with missiles applies Arcane Debilitation, increasing the damage taken from your Arcane Missiles, Arcane Barrage, and Arcane Blast by 1% for 6 seconds if you put 2 points into it. New stacks do not refresh duration. Now, of course, your missiles, you shoot a lot of them, right? So you're going to get a large percent buff here. I wonder, though, what the potential optimizations will be done with this. Like, I guess you kind of want to stack up and then spam a bunch of missiles to get a lot of stacks of this, and then, Presence in Mind blast at the end or something. I don't know. Time Loop's been redesigned. When you apply a stack of Debilitation, you have a 10% chance to apply another one, and this can trigger off of itself. Ether Attunement's been redesigned. Consuming Clearcasting has a 15% chance to grant you Ether Attunement, causing your next missiles to deal increased damage to your primary target and fire it up to 4 nearby enemies. So that's like the current set bonus, I think. Although I think the current set bonus does it after 3 consumes rather than on a chance. Ether Attunement's now tracked on the personal resource display. It's tracked in enemy, or Arcane Debilitation is tracked in enemy nameplates. Ley Drinker's been redesigned. Consuming Nether Precision has a 15% chance to make your next blast or barrage echo, repeating its damage at 25% effectiveness to the primary target and up to 4 nearby enemies. Ley Drinker's visuals have been updated. New talent, Surging Urge. Arcane Surge damage increased by 5% per charge. And Nether Munitions damage amplification reduced to 6% was 8. Interesting. Yeah, I've started playing a little bit of Arcane recently. Not really sure how to feel about this. I guess this seems like a reasonable goal. I wonder how this is going to affect the playstyle. I liked the way the set bonus worked as well with knowing when you were going to get it rather than it being a proc chance, but maybe it'll be fun to react to this. I don't know. Fire. Alexstrasza's Fury is no longer a choice node with From the Ashes. Quick Flame's Flame Strike damage bonus has been reduced to 20% from 25%. Charring Embers has been moved to Gate 2. It now increases the damage you deal to affected targets by 4 from 6. From the Ashes has been redesigned. Your direct damage spells to targets affected by Charring Embers reduce the cooldown of Phoenix Flames by 1 second. Deep Impact has been redesigned. Meteor now turns one target hit into a living bomb. Its cooldown's been reduced. Phoenix Reborn no longer requires enemies to be under the effects of Charring Embers. Inflame has returned and is now in Gate 3. Focus Fury has been removed. Convection and Focus Fury were intended to be flex talents to help you get a bit more single target damage while in an AoE build, but the combination was making Living Bomb so powerful in single target that it was overshadowing Pyroblast. We don't have a problem with Living Bomb being present in single target builds, but it shouldn't be one of your highest damage contributors. Given the design of Focus Fury, it stands very opposed to this principle, and thus we opted to remove it. Convection is now where it was, and Wildfire has been removed as well. Okay, so they've killed a lot of the Living Bomb stuff that was going on before. I guess we'll see if it's still something that is worth doing in a regular build. I don't know. I'm very much not a Fire Mage scientist. Monk. Conduit of the Celestials. Strength of the Ox now additionally refunds 2 stacks of Teaching the Monastery after being consumed for Windwalker. Flight of the Red Crane now grants 1 stack of Mana Tree for Mistweaver and 20% increased energy regen for Windwalker for 6 seconds when activated. Heart of the Jade Serpent now activates from Strike of the Windlord for Windwalker, was Storm, Earth, and Fire. Its activation rate would outpace Storm, Earth, and Fire's recharge rate eventually, leading to wasted procs. Brewmaster. Removed Improved Celestial and Purifying Brew. Those functions are now baseline. Elusive Footwork is now 1 point, and they've adjusted the positions of Nuzao and the Nuzao talents. This is +3 talent points if I'm reading this correctly. That's cool. Mistweaver. Pool of Mists, new talent. Renewing Mist now has 3 charges and reduces the remaining cooldown of Rising Sun Kick by 1 second. Rising Sun Kick now reduces the remaining cooldown of Renewing Mist by 1 second. Okay, so you got a little bit of a Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, back and forth clicking rotation. Interesting. Teaching the Monastery is now baseline. There's a known issue with swapping talents, bugging that on alpha. Refreshing Jadewind's been redesigned. Thunder Focus Tea now summons a whirling tornado around you, causing healing over 8 seconds. So there's just like Rushing Jadewind, where they've made it auto-done rather than a button you press by itself. Yu'lon's Whisper's been redesigned. While channeling Mana Tea, you exhale the breath of Yu'lon, healing up to 5 allies within 15 yards every 0.5 seconds. Chi Harmony's been redesigned. Renewing Mist increases its target's healing received from you by 50% for the first 8 seconds of duration, but it can't jump to a new target during this time. So they want to make it so cut down the amount of active auras on frames, now that it's here to stay as a talent. Renewing Mist will have a new icon indicating when its Chi Harmony healing increase is active, and will swap back to its original icon when that ends. We'd love to hear feedback on this. This sounds really cool, because now you'll be able to kind of reliably, use Renewing Mist as a kind of pseudo-enveloping mist even. in medium damage intake situations on certain targets, and rely on it staying on a target too. Kind of makes sense. Kind of seems cool. Crane Style has been moved to Teaching the Monastery for the location. Misty Peaks now has a 4 or 8% chance to activate, and now extends Enveloping Mist on targets if Enveloping Mist is present. Previously, it would not proc. Nice. Windwalker, new talent, Jadefire Fist. At the end of your Fist of Fury channel, you release a Jadefire Stomp. This can only occur once every 20 seconds. Shares a choice note with Jadefire Stomp. Love it. This is a cool way to get Jadefire Stomps without actually having to press the button. Might make this actually feel pretty fun. And cleverly, at the end of your Fist of Fury channel, putting this line of text into a few talents is going to go a long way towards stopping Windwalkers from ever intentionally canceling their Fist of Fury early, which does happen sometimes throughout the course of the game's history, as different values of different spells change for this spec. Paladin, Crusader's Reprieve has been removed, Touch of Light has been moved to where it was, and Incandescence now functions with Divine Hammer for Ret. Priest, Shadow Crash is now a choice node with a new talent, Void Crash. I think that, so Shadow Crash, I guess, is going to be aimed at a location, whereas Void Crash is just aimed at your current target. Okay. I like the idea of just letting you choose which of those you want. That way, all the old people can play Shadow Crash. Everybody who hasn't played Shadow yet will play Void Crash and be like, yeah, of course, this is much better. And all the old people will be like, no, sometimes I want to aim this before the boss spawns or whatever. And then sometimes they're going to miss their Shadow Crashes, and they're going to rage at the tank still. And the tank's going to be like, what are you doing? Just play Void Crash. That's going to be a fun little dynamic. Rogue. Fatebound. Defy or deal Fate now generates exactly 1 combo point per use of any listed ability. I guess it already did that, but it now specifies it. It now includes Ambush for Assassination and also for Outlaw while Hidden Opportunity is talented. Venom Rush has been removed from Assassination, and there's a new talent, Sanguine Stratagem. Gain 1 additional max combo point. Your finishing moves that consume 5 or more combo points have increased effects, and your finishing moves deal 5% increased damage. Outlaw, Blade Flurry radius has been increased to 8 yards was melee range. Good. Blade Flurry being a shorter range is a really serious nerf to Outlaw's AoE, and buffing that at least is nice, makes it so that in M+ pulls, you don't need the packs to be pixel stacked for you to be able to Blade Flurry all of them. It still would be nice if this was just Blade Flurry radius increased to 8 yards. This is now melee range. That would be my favorite thing, but it is what it is. Warlock, demo. They've nerfed the size of Gloomhound and Charhound. Unacceptable. Unbelievable. Destro. Ooh, Infernal is now a 2-minute CD from 3. Decimation's been redesigned. Your crits have a chance to reset the cooldown of Soulfire and reduce the cast time of it by 80%. Scalding Flames has been redesigned. The damage and duration of Immo Aura up. Indiscriminate Flames. Backdraft increases the damage of your next Chaos Bolt by 5%, or the crit chance of your next Incinerate or Soulfire by 35%. Interesting. I wonder if that's better, especially if that's on Soulfire. That's probably better than the Chaos Bolt side of it. Blistering Atrophy increases the damage of Shadowburn by 20%. Shadowburn always crits a target that is at or below 30% health. When Shadowburn fails to kill a target that's at or below 30% health, its cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. Demon Fire Mastery increases the damage of Channel Demon Fire by 30%, and it deals its damage 35% faster. Improved Chaos Bolt increases the damage bolt of Chaos Bolt by 10% and reduces its cast time by 0.5 seconds. Avatar of Destruction. Okay, so this was the Blasphemies. Now it says Consuming Ritual of Ruin summons an Overfiend for 8 seconds. Overfiends generate 1 Soul Shard fragment every 0.5 seconds and cast Chaos Bolt at its summoner's target, dealing chaos damage. Okay, so it's sort of a single target ranged Blasphemy that doesn't stun. Maybe that's fair. That's probably fair. Dimensional Ripper. Incinerate has a chance to create a Dimensional Rift or recharge Dimensional Rift if learned. Flame Rift. Dimensional Rift can now summon a powerful Flame Rift, so these are just the last tier set bonuses. While you have a Dimensional Rift open, all of your damage is increased by 5%. Bolts from Dimensional Rift deal 25% to nearby enemies, a little bit of AoE on that. Bunch of talents being moved, a bunch being removed, including Grand Warlock's Design, Decimating Bolt, Improved Immolate, Cry Havoc, and Pandemonium. Okay, so the Decimating Bolt experiment is over. And a bunch of talents are now 1 rank, so a huge quality of life increase to Destro. One of the overhauls that I think was met initially with a great deal of criticism. It looks like they're making a very serious swing here at responding to some feedback, and particularly around the talent point bloat that the tree was experiencing, and also giving back the Flame Rift build, giving back a Blasphemy type effect through Overfiends instead, so they could get rid of the free stun spam thing. Seems pretty good. Seems like a pretty cool time to be a Destro lock. Finally, we have UI changes. Most world map icons can now be super tracked by left clicking. Events, rares, rare elites, bonus objectives, flight masters, dungeon raid entrances, and more. Love it. Upon learning Dynamic Flight, the Dynamic Flight talent tree is now accessible via a button within the Mount Journal. Also love it. Great changes. All right, that is our look at the dev notes for this build of the War Within. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the changes down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.